Hey guys, we're back here at the Band Cave Studios tracking drums for the new Tetrarch album, and I thought I'd take a minute to show you the setup, talk about the drums Ruben plays, the sticks he uses, the heads we've selected, the mics we've chosen and how we've placed them, and then show you how it all comes together to form our full drum sound. For tom and kick shells, we're using a brand new D-Drum Dios kit that was actually shipped directly to the studio for the album. The shells are 100% American maple with an awesome flat black finish. And the sizes are 22 by 20 for the kick drum, a 13 by 9 rack tom, and a 16 by 14 floor tom. You'll know if you've worked with a lot of drum sets that the more road-worn kits that come in can be difficult to tune and keep proper tune because they may be warped or some of the rims may not be in perfect alignment. Some of the lugs are scratchy and stiff. But being this kit was just brand new, it was super easy. The drum heads seated perfectly and tuning was a breeze. For snare, we're using a relatively new acquisition of mine. That's a Pearl Steve Ferroni Signature Series. It's a brass 14 by 6.5 shell that's, to be perfectly honest, a Black Beauty clone. But this one is definitely done right. It sounds great, and I really love the aesthetics of it with the black shell and the brass hardware. I think it looks awesome. We're using Remo clear Emperors on tom batters and clear Ambassadors on resonant heads across both toms, which are pretty much my standard. That's what I would go to first in most cases. Occasionally I'd mix it up, but I really like the control sustain of the clear Emperors, how easy they are to tune, how the attack blends with the resonance of the drum, and how long they last. On snare, we're using a coated Emperor on top with the standard hazy snare side Ambassador on bottom. I don't often go to the coated Emperor, but I kind of had an idea for a more lively sound with a bit of ring and some more sustain than what I might find with Control Sound X or PowerStroke 3, which are two other choices that I often go to. It's sounding great, and we have it tuned up in the medium to medium high range, and kind of gives us a lot of that life and responsiveness that I was looking for. On kick, we're using the Evans EMAD with the smaller foam dampening ring, and there's a blanket inside the kick also for some additional dampening. All the heads were tuned up initially and continually tuned up with the TuneBot, which is awesome for consistency. It's definitely the best tool for making the drums sound exactly the same every time you retune. It's particularly good when you're changing heads. You can really get the drum right back to the spot that you had the first set on. But for this album, we actually got through the entire session on our initial set of heads. And we had another backup set ready to go, but I never really felt any drop off, despite Ruben being an absolute beast and crushing his drums. I was constantly going back and referencing some of the first takes and making sure we weren't losing too much. And there is some, but for whatever reason, these heads just really kind of kept their life up, and I never felt the need to switch them out. Hi-hats and crashes are all Zildjian A customs, and he has two Zildjian Effects Chinas, a 12-inch and a 16-inch, I believe, and his ride is a TRX BRT hand-hammered ride. Ruben is playing with Vic Firth 5B American Classic sticks, and as you can tell, he's an absolute rim shot machine. Drumsticks is one thing that, similar to guitar picks, a lot of people often overlook. It's the tool that's transferring energy from the drummer to the actual drum and can make a huge difference on how full your toms sound. The attack characteristics of toms and snares is definitely something you should not overlook and pay attention to when you're setting up your own drum sounds. As far as mic selection, we're using a Sennheiser 441 on snare top and a Bear Dynamic M201 on snare bottom. We actually conducted a snare top mic shootout comparing 12 different mics. My favorite in this particular case ended up being the Sennheiser 441 for its overall shape, and a lot of it having to do with the sound of the off-access sources like cymbals and hi-hats. They were a lot smoother and less harsh on the 441 than almost all of the other dynamics, and that makes a big difference. You don't want to hear, a bunch of hi-hat trash or cymbal trash when your gates are opening and closing on your snare close mics. And also really liked the body it presented and just kind of like a smooth, natural sound that I could sort of shape how I wanted. It seemed to be one of the more flexible mics that we tested. On kick drum, I have an Audix D6 inside the drum, as well as a Shure Beta 91. I've really been digging this combo lately. The mids of the Beta 91 seem to really fill out the scoop sound that the Audix D6 gives you, and allows you to kind of craft the attack of the drum mixed with the low end and the sustain from the D6, and it gives you almost like an EQ just by blending those two sources. For overheads, I'm using a matched pair of Rode TF5s, which after some comparison may have taken over that spot from my Neumann KM184s permanently. My friend Bo did an awesome video comparing those two mic selections, as well as a bunch of other small diaphragm condensers that I will link to in the comments. You should definitely check out. The TF5s sound really great with super clean and extended top end, and a pretty natural sounding mid-range and low end if you would like to use any low end from your overheads. And with the KM184s moving over to ride and hi-hat, they almost make a perfect team. The KM184s have a slightly more mid-forward sound that helps those sources of ride and hi-hat to kind of poke through a little more and become more usable than just like a bit of high end. So I'm really curious to see how those shape up in the mix, but so far I'm really liking the blend of those two. I also have a Rode M5 on each china as spot mics, just to give those accent cymbals a bit of forwardness and potency in the mix. Again, with the Rode mics that are seemingly taking over my drum miking setup, I have a pair of NTK ribbons in a Bloomline setup, about 7.5 feet from the kick drum at cymbal height, that are amazing on room. Really nice, well-balanced sound, lots of beef in the low end, not too trashy in the top end, but there's still plenty of available extended highs. They're definitely not a darker sounding ribbon and are pretty well balanced right off the bat. This is the first time I've used them in this room and am really digging them. As far as preamps, all the drum shells are feeding my Phoenix Audio DSR-8, and all the overheads are going through a Grace M801. Both of those units are feeding the Orion 32 Plus interface for conversion, running right into Cubase 10. All right, now that we've covered all the details, let's have Ruben play a bit and hear how it all comes together. And there you have it. As always, I love tracking in this room. Really stoked on the sound so far. Ruben plays like an absolute madman and is pretty key to how these drums sound, honestly. He really knows how to just project power right into the shells and plays super consistently, which is important for this style of music. I hope you found some useful information in this video. And if you're into it, hit that subscribe button, click that like button, and I will see you guys next time.